Hey everyone, Joe Ludwig here, co-host of the Craft Parenting Podcast. I wanted to do this introduction for this week's episode to let you know that this episode contains spoilers for the movie The Sound of Freedom. So if you have any intention of seeing the movie in the future, which I personally think you should, and I will explain why in this episode. But if you don't want to be spoiled, perhaps put this in your queue for later until after you see the movie. This video additionally talks about subjects that are not kid or family friendly. So this one is not the one to watch with the kids. It talks about a very deep subject, trafficking and abuse. So, and I try to keep the language as clean as I can, but it is not, in my opinion, kid or child friendly. So please keep that in mind and enjoy the show. Thank you.
How many pedophiles you got?
288.
How many kids you found?
It is the fastest growing international crime network that the world has ever seen. It has already passed the illegal arms trade, and soon it's going to pass the drug trade. Because you can sell a bag of cocaine one time with a child 5 to 10 times a day. God's children are not for sale.
How long you been doing this?
12 years now.
How many pedophiles you got?
288.
How many kids you found?
Timoteo, tú rescatas niños, ¿verdad? ¿Puedes ayudarme a encontrar a mi hermana?
Te lo prometo.
For Homeland Security, you know we can't go off rescuing Honduran kids in Colombia.
Which means she'll disappear for good. Imagine walking into her room right now, seeing an empty bed. What we do?
You quit your job, and you go and rescue those kids.
So at this moment, she could be a block down the road, or she could be in Moscow, Bangkok, LA. She's a major operator.
It's all rebel territory. No one goes in. Not the army, not the police, not us.
What if this was your daughter?
There's no Marine unit coming.
You're on your own. This job tears you to pieces. And this is my one chance to put those pieces back together.
When God tells you what to do, you cannot hesitate.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Craft Parenting Podcast, the podcast about two Cincinnati craft beer lovers with a parenting problem. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Joe Ludwig, here solo for a very special edition of the Craft Parenting Podcast. As you may have guessed, I recently saw a movie called The Sound of Freedom. In this week's episode, I am going to tell you what I thought of the movie, what the media is saying about it, and what we can do to help. But first, since this is at least partially a craft beer podcast, I do have an adult beverage in front of me. I am currently drinking a cold brew Imperial Stout with Deeper Roots coffee. It is brewed by West Side Brewing here in Westwood, Ohio, on the, of course, west side of Cincinnati. The ABV is 11.2%. IBUs 62. It is a very big beer. a very heavy beer for a very heavy topic. I guess this goes without saying for all of our episodes, but for this one especially, in this week's episode of the Craft Parenting Podcast, I will be expressing some opinions, sometimes strongly worded ones. Those thoughts and opinions are mine and mine alone, and do not represent any entity such as my full-time gig or otherwise. So what you just saw was, of course, the trailer for The Sound of Freedom. The Sound of Freedom, for those who don't know, is a American action film thriller directed and co-written by Alejandro Monteverda. I cannot speak Spanish for the life of me. However, the movie stars Jim Caviezel, Mira Sorvino, and Bill Camp. It was released July 4th and distributed by Angel Studios, the same studio that is involved in a little-known TV show called The Chosen. It is rated PG-13 and is 2 hours and 11 minutes long. Now, I just wanted to start by talking about the development of this film, because it did come out in 2023, but it was not made anywhere near 2023. Sound of Freedom, of course, is based on a true story. It was inspired by the work of Tim Ballard, the founder of Operation Underground Railroad, or OUR, an anti-trafficking nonprofit. Work on the script for this movie began in 2015. This is according to Wikipedia. The film was completed in 2018, and a distribution deal was made with a Latin America subsidiary of 20th Century Fox. So it was going to be released through the 20th Century Fox. However, the studio was purchased by the Walt Disney Company, and after that acquisition went through, the film was shelved. After that happened, the filmmakers bought the distribution rights back from the studio, and that took about 5 years for that to happen. 8 years production time. This movie overcame so many hurdles in order to be released by the Hollywood bureaucracy, the suits, as some people might call it. It's kind of mind-blowing. But before we go into my thoughts for this film, I did want to go over what our lovely American and I guess other media are saying. So we will start by this awesome headline by the Rolling Stone. I guess it's a magazine. It's supposed to be like a music magazine or something. They say Miles Klee, this individual says on July 7th, 2023, Sound of Freedom is a superhero movie for dads with brainworms. The QAnon-tinged thriller about child trafficking is designed to appeal to the conscience of a conspiracy-addled boomer. I think I got dumber reading that headline. I'm not going to read this garbage. I'm just going to go on. The Washington Post, Herb Scribner and Will Sommer from the Washington Post, on the exact same day as Rolling Stone, they published with the headline, Sound of Freedom is a box office hit whose star embraces QAnon. The low-budget film about child sex trafficking almost topped the box office on July 4th, but its star Jim Caviezel has links to the QAnon movement. What is wrong with you? Talk about garbage. They say, I'll read a little bit. A casual moviegoer might not get why anyone is upset about Sound of Freedom, a surprise hit inspired by the real-life exploits of Tim Ballard, a former Department of Homeland Security agent who stages sting operations to catch child sex traffickers. It's a fairly standard American action thriller, gritty, violent, and hopeful, in which Ballard, Jim Caviezel, fights to save abducted children in the Colombian jungle. The partially crowdfunded film opened this week to a solid review in Variety and vied with the latest Indiana Jones sequel for the top box office on July 4th. But Sound of Freedom has been accused by some critics of warping the truth about child exploitation and catering to QAnon conspiracy theories, something its distributor, Angel Studios, denies. Well, you guys are the ones who are accusing them. It's you. You're just spouting garbage from the Rolling Stone. No one is accusing them. The media, are accusing them. Let's move on. Jezebel. Sound of Freedom is an anti-child trafficking fantasy fit for QAnon, says Rich Juzewak, published July 3rd. At least he got the QAnon clicks before the Washington Post and Rolling Stone. He jumped right on that. Star Jim Caviezel, who plays real-life anti-trafficking activist Tim Ballard, has been talking about adrenochrome and organ harvesting on his press tour. Yeah. Well, we'll get to the organ harvesting part of that. Oh, The Guardian. This is an international perspective, since us Americans, we love the perspective of our fellow UK journalists. We love their perspective. Charles Bramesco says, Sound of Freedom, the QAnon adjacent thriller seducing America, published July 6th. So before the Washington Post and the Rolling Stone. Come on, you guys. You have to get on those clicks. You have to get that SEO keywords and get that ad revenue. Jim Caviezel stars as a hero trying to stop child traffickers in a paranoid new movie turning into a surprise box office hit. Why is it paranoid? I'm not going to read this garbage. I'll put these links in the show notes if you want it. I saw the movie They Don't Want You to See, says Elaine Godfrey from The Atlantic. Sound of Freedom and the Limits of Culture War Marketing. It's locked under a paywall. Who would read this garbage? Oh, this is my favorite. From USA Today, Kristen Abrams, opinion contributor, says Sound of Freedom misleads audience about the horrible reality of human trafficking. Contrary to what is shown in Jim Caviezel's movie, I don't think it was his movie. He was just an actor in it. You would think that it would be the director's movie, but okay. Most child trafficking victims know and trust their traffickers. And that makes it okay. I like this part down here where she says, the McCain Institute is focused on advancing real solutions. And who is she from? Senior Director for combating human trafficking at the McCain Institute. Yeah. Don't give them money, give me money. Well, I did see the movie that they don't want you to see, and I have thoughts on it and feelings about it. Okay? And we're going to go through those thoughts and feelings. As you can tell, I don't really like what the media has said about this film. And I would go on, but I don't want my intelligence to drop because of these idiotic people. However, despite all of this negative press, the movie has shattered expectations. It currently has a 72% positive rating from the critics. So it's overwhelmingly positive, despite the half a dozen articles I just cited. And the audience gives it a 99% positive rating. So the audience really enjoys this film. The critics, overwhelmingly positive. To date, as of today, it has grossed over $149 million against a $14.5 million budget. At one point, it was doing better domestically than summer blockbusters such as The Flash, Scream 6, and Mission Impossible. And that's with it being in fewer movie theaters. And additionally, it's not even releasing internationally until August. So it's a hit. It is definitely a hit. I think on July 4th, the day it came out, it beat Indiana Jones in the domestic box office. But Indiana Jones was released the previous Thursday, I believe. So Indiana Jones was out for the entire weekend. However, for that day, the 4th of July, I believe The Sound of Freedom beat Indiana Jones 5, which is amazing because of the difference in budget and marketing and stuff. So I did see this movie. I saw the movie that they do not want me to see. Obviously, they don't want me to see it. This movie is not QAnon adjacent. It was made in 2018 and was financed by 20th Century Fox. It's like a mainstream studio. It has nothing to do with QAnon. What? It is not religious. There's one line about how God's children are not for sale. There's no no one's lecturing you about scripture or any of that or anything like that. There are no conspiracy theories or over exaggerations. This movie is based on a true story. Of course, there are some parts that are, quote, Hollywoodized. And, you know, they took creative liberties and stuff. But most movies based on a true story, that's what they do. Because at the end of the day, it is a movie. But it does have a message. And that message is felt throughout the movie. There's a very strong presence, in fact. No one is uttering conspiracies. The story is a child has been kidnapped and they go find the child. That's the story. There's no conspiracies. There's no organ harvesting or whatever that these people, deranged people, are talking about. And they are deranged because The Guardian in 2019 published an article, February 25th, 2019. They published an article, 1 in 200 people is a slave. Slavery affects more than 40 million people worldwide, more than any other time in history. How many slaves are there today and who are they? The word slavery Katie Hodel says. The word slavery conjures up images of shackles and transatlantic ships, depictions that are relegated firmly to the past, but more people are enslaved today than at any time in history. Experts have calculated that roughly 13 million people were captured and sold as slaves between the 15th and 19th century. Today, an estimated 40.3 million people, more than 3 times the figure during the transatlantic slave trade, are living in some form of modern slavery, according to the latest figures published by the UN's International Labor Organization and the Walk Free Foundation. Is the UN a QAnon adjacent organization? Rolling Stone, The Guardian, and whoever else? Women and girls comprise 71% of all modern slavery victims. Children make up 25% and account for 10 million of all the slaves worldwide. What are the slaves being forced to do? A person today is considered enslaved if they are forced to work against their will, are owned or are controlled by an exploiter or employer, have limited freedom of movement, or are dehumanized, treated as a commodity, are bought and sold as property, according to abolition group Anti-Slavery International. Globally, more than half of the 40.3 million victims, 24.9 million, are in forced labor, which means they are working against their will and under threat, intimidation, or coercion. An additional 15.4 million people are estimated to be living in forced marriages. Of the 24.9 million people trapped in forced labor, the majority, 16 million, work in the private sector. Slaves clean houses and flats, produce the clothes we wear, pick the fruit and vegetables we eat, trawl the seas for the shrimp on our restaurant plates, dig for the minerals used in our smartphones, makeup and electric cars, the nickel for batteries, including, and work on construction jobs building infrastructure for the 2022 Qatar World Cup. Another 4.8 million people working in forced labor are estimated to be sexually exploited, while roughly 4.1 million people are in state-sanctioned forced labor, which includes governmental abuse of military conscription, forced construction or architectural work, and in certain countries such as Mauritania, people are born with hereditary slavery if their mother was a slave. Again, women and girls bear the brunt of these statistics, comprising 99% of all victims in the commercial sex industry and 58% in other sectors, according to the ILO. QAnon adjacent UN statistics right there. Can we go to QAnon CBS News in 2014?
Last weekend, police broke up a major sex trafficking ring in Colombia, which has become a destination for tourists looking for sex with boys and girls. The police had help from an American who went undercover to rescue the children, and Elaine Quijano met him.
Tim Ballard has one mission: to track down child traffickers. 4 months ago, Colombian authorities asked him to investigate a tip that children were being sold there as sex slaves.
Within a half hour, this individual walks up to me, starts asking me what I'm here for, what I want, and within minutes, he says, well, I've got kids as young as 11 years old.
What about this? QAnon adjacent CBS News again. 16 Marines arrested at Camp Pendleton after human smuggling investigation, Marine Corps says. July 26, 2019. 16 Marines at California's Camp Pendleton have been arrested following a human smuggling investigation, according to the Marine Corps. The 16 Marines were arrested Thursday morning on allegations ranging from human smuggling to drug-related offenses, the 1st Marine Division said in a statement. The arrests were carried out by division officials and the Naval Criminal Investigative Service during battalion formation. The arrest came only weeks after 2 Marines at the base were arrested near the border by a Border Patrol agent. The 2 Marines were accused of smuggling 3 Mexicans into the United States. The base is located north of San Diego, about 55 miles from the U.S.-Mexico border. The Marine Corps said information gained from those arrests led to Thursday's arrests. 8 additional Marines were reportedly questioned about unrelated drug offenses. The 2 Marines arrested previously, Brand Darrell Law II, blah, blah, blah. Or what about this? More recent, July 9th, 2023. Family says missing 14-year-old girl found in Camp Pendleton barracks sold for sex. QAnon adjacent ABC News. A 14-year-old girl who was reported missing from her Spring Valley home last month is back home after she was found at Camp Pendleton, authorities said today, while a Marine has reportedly been taken into custody in the case, which is being investigated by human trafficking authorities. The girl, who has not been identified because of her age, was reported missing by her grandmother on June 13th, according to the San Diego County Sheriff's Department. Sheriff's officials said the grandmother told them the girl, who had run away before but always returned home quickly, went missing on June 9th. The teen's information was gathered into multiple missing person databases, including the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Military police at Camp Pendleton located the girl on June 28th and informed the Sheriff's Department. Detectives interviewed her and the family were offered services. Since Camp Pendleton is federal property, Naval Criminal Investigation Services, NCIS, hey, there's a TV show about that, is handling the investigation. San Diego County Sheriff's Department and the San Diego Human Trafficking Task Force are supporting NCIS with the investigation. So what about those argon harvesting that's going on, the QAnon stuff? Oh, wait. You mean it's actually happening? This is in Ukraine. Daily Mail, another international publication, says, quote, published June 28th, 2023, moment, quote, evil child trader is caught trying to take 11-month-old baby out of Ukraine to quote, sell for organ transplants after paying his mother $1,000. Trafficker allegedly offered the mother a total of $5,000 for her young child. She reported him to authorities and he was detained at the Slovakian border. These kind of stories make my blood boil. As you can tell, I'm a little bit animated. A charity worker and, quote, evil child trader has been detained in Ukraine after he was caught red-handed seeking to take an 11-month-old baby abroad to, quote, sell for organ transplants. The man, 43, has allegedly given a $1,000 down payment to the boy's mother, claiming he would ensure the boy was adopted in the EU to live in safety away from the war. He offered the woman a total of $5,000 for the baby, who he then intended to sell to traffickers for $25,000. Pictures show the man detained with a female accomplice at the Ukraine-Slovakia border as he intended to cross with the child. While this boy was saved, it is suspected the man had previously sold 3 other children on the pretext of taking them out on a war-torn Ukraine and finding them adoptive parents abroad. They continue. The detained man, quote, have been looking for parents who are ready to sell their child for organs, reported Ukrainian journalist. I'm not even going to try to say that. Vitaly Golia. Law enforcement officers have operational information that this was not for adoption to the EU and the child was to have been sold to illegal organ transplanters. I have one more. one more awesome article. It's by the known QAnon publication, being sarcastic, by the way, called the New York Times. Alone and exploited, migrant children work brutal jobs across the U.S. Arriving in record numbers, they're ending up in dangerous jobs that violate child labor laws, including in factories that make products for well-known brands like Cheerios and Fruit of the Loom. This was written by Hannah Dreyer. Originally published February 25th, updated February 28th. Let's see, a 14-year-old going to a construction job site. Yep. 15-year-old going to work at a Cheerios factory. 13-year-old going to a day labor job before sunrise. I'm not going to read this. This is kind of just sad. It makes me sad. A little bit angry. So to summarize, the media coverage of The Sound of Freedom has been complete and utter bullshit. If you are a so-called journalist at a mainstream publication and you slandered this film, shame on you. Seriously, shame on you. And it's disgusting. It's not journalism. If you don't like the movie, fine. Why do you have to slander it? I do have my own thoughts and feelings about this movie. And just for some context, I haven't been to a movie theater since we saw Star Wars Episode 9 in December 2019. There's a couple of reasons for why we just haven't gone to the movies. Mostly, there's COVID, obviously, and then there are the two kids. Can't take newborns to a movie theater. Imagine that. I did happen to go today, just me, and I went with a very good friend of mine. Caroline stayed home with the kids. This kind of movie isn't really up her alley. I'll get to that in a minute. We went to AMC on Newport on the Levee. We did not sneak theater beers, although we did stop for a pre-movie beer at West 6 and had an after-movie beer or two at Wooden Cask right there on the levee. If you haven't been to Newport on the Levee recently, you should go. It's changed quite a bit, and I was actually very impressed with it, with all the stuff that's changed. I have seen a lot of movies in my lifetime. I'm not very old. It was something that growing up, that's what we did. We went on the weekends. We went to the movies. That's what we did. We saw, the superhero movies. We saw all kinds of movies. We just loved going to movies. I don't think I walked out from a movie feeling like I did after The Sound of Freedom. It's a very impactful movie, a very powerful movie. It is an indie film. The budget was only a little over $14 million. Not that much for a movie these days. Indiana Jones 5, for example, had a budget of $295 million. And that doesn't include the marketing costs. So here are my thoughts. It's a well-made movie. I was on the edge of my seat for basically the entire film. And maybe that's my perspective. Maybe that was because of, I'm a dad. And the kids who get kidnapped, little boy and a little girl. So it's both. And I have a little boy and a little girl. So maybe that maybe I'm a little biased in that. Although I think anyone could empathize with the father in that situation, because it was I think it was a single dad with 2 kids. Second, you immediately feel invested in the story during the first sequence of the movie. So the first couple scenes before the credits, they have you hooked. And then they hit you during the credits sequence with real life footage of kids being taken. It's not just America. This is a global issue. I don't want to make it seem like people are snatching kids up. And this movie doesn't make that claim. It's that it follows a very specific case. 2 kids who were tricked. I'll just say it. So it's a little girl. She's, I think, Colombian. I don't know, actually. Was she Colombian? It's a little girl, regardless. She's singing with the windows open, and this woman knocks on the door. Very beautiful woman. Very charming woman. She says, "Hey, you're very talented." And then she convinces the dad that she's a talent scout. And the dad he's a single dad. He works long days. You can kind of tell that. He works hard, and he's probably hurting for money for whatever reason. Maybe the mom's not in the picture. He's trying to support his 2 kids. I didn't really go too much in detail on that. That's me speculating, but he's probably excited at the prospect of, potentially making money or whatever to support the kids. Maybe send the kids to college, for a good education or whatever. So he's like, okay, she is a good singer, sure. So he's tricked into dropping his kids off at this talent agency, and they're like, yeah, you can't come in, no stage dads allowed, and come back at 7, come back later that night. And he does, and of course the kids aren't there. Seems like a silly thing, right? Like, why would you drop your kids off at a stranger's place or whatever? Young kid, not too young, probably like 7, 8, 9, 10. But I think it goes back to the motivations of the father. He's a single dad, seemingly single dad, probably desperate for money. He thinks this is the big break, and they didn't tell him, of course, up front. You couldn't go in. He doesn't want to disappoint his daughter. There's this whole like they're already there, and then she says, "No, you can't come in." So they trick him. In this particular case, they didn't snatch anyone off the street. So those articles are just dead lies. This is a very specific case. It only goes through one case. How can a movie go through every single case of child trafficking? It is a movie. It has to have a story. The story is the case of these 2 kids who were trafficked. These 2 specific kids. Drives me nuts. So immediately you're invested, right? The kids are taken, and then it goes to the credits, the opening credits, where it's just actual footage of kids being taken. There were times in the movie when the characters got a small win, and you feel good. You feel good for that small win. You feel invested in Tim Ballard and the team. And then right in the next scene, they punch you in the gut with something devastating. It's an emotional roller coaster. The pacing made the 2+ hour, a little over 2 hour plus movie runtime feel shorter. I was never bored during the movie. I was never like watching my phone or anything like that. I was just, on the edge of my seat, hoping that they would catch, they would find the girl. The soundtrack was very present and made certain scenes pop. Everything in this film I felt worked together for a fantastic experience. I will say, we kind of went over this, but I kind of already said this, but it was tough to watch at times. If you took out the fact that this movie was based on a true story, this would be a fantastic thriller, cop procedural type film. The fact that this is a true story and this kind of stuff happens in the world makes the film a lot more sobering, I would say. Shows you the mentality of the perpetrators and in addition to those who enable this kind of behavior. As you can probably imagine, this movie is not a lighthearted one. The first 45 minutes or so are emotionally draining and will make you sick to your stomach, especially if you are a parent. They don't show anything explicit or overtly sexual, nothing like that. What they do to the kids is heavily implied and sometimes described briefly by the doctors in the movie. They do, however, show kids getting stolen and shipped via storage containers on boats. So that was very difficult to watch. The two kids at the beginning of the movie who were, the father was tricked. The kids were then taken to the dock and then forced into a storage container. It was, and then the boat, they were loaded onto a boat, and I think then they went to Colombia. So I think they were from, I don't remember where they were from. The other thing about this movie is that a lot of it was in Spanish, so there was a lot of subtitles that you had to read. I have more thoughts. Religion and politics were not discussed at all. Literally, not at all. This is not a religious movie. Jesus Christ Superstar is a religious movie. The Passion of the Christ is a religious movie. The Sound of Freedom is not a religious movie. It's a movie about child trafficking. The main character says the phrase, quote, "God's children are not for sale," once throughout the entire movie. Another character talks about how God inspired him, in his opinion, to help save trafficked children. There are two freaking lines about God in the entire film that doesn't make it into a religious movie. Doesn't even make it religious adjacent. It's a film about child trafficking and the reality of it, and about the perpetrators and those who enable it. Additionally, this movie is not a political movie. There's talk about bureaucracy in the three-letter agencies, but it's pretty politically neutral. If you think being against trafficking children is a right-wing or left-wing issue, I don't really know what to tell you. Get off Twitter, maybe. There's zero talk about QAnon theories. This movie was made in 2018, before that stuff was So yeah, criticisms. I would say that this is not a perfect movie. I'd probably give it an 8 or 9 out of 10, maybe. Some of the lines that the character Tim Ballard said in the movie didn't seem organic to me. This is kind of a nitpick coming from the resident writer. There was a scene when Tim was trying to convince this rich person to help him set up island paradise for the pedophiles to help set up and save the children. It was a setup. It was a fake island paradise for pedophiles. Then they would, rush in and save the children or whatever. And during this conversation, he just conversationally spat out a bunch of stats about human trafficking. That particular line, to me, kind of seemed like it was added to the script more to benefit the audience than the characters. It didn't seem like something a normal person would say in that situation. Again, this is nitpicking, but additionally, the phrase "God's children are not for sale," while it was a very powerful moment in the film, made you want to go, yeah, as an audience member. It did kind of feel like a catchphrase, something that they could potentially use to help market the film. I don't know that, people talk like that necessarily. Again, this is a movie, though. It's not a documentary. Okay, so I'm going to wrap this up, the review portion of this up at least. So overall, I thought it was a very powerful movie. I think that every parent should see it. Don't let the media do the thinking for you. Let them write whatever garbage they want to write, but don't let them do the thinking for you. Do your own thinking and go see this movie. Go see the movie. It will open your eyes about what's out there, the evil that's out there. That's what I would tell you. I would tell you to go see the movie and make your own determination about it. Because some of the reviews that I just read, they make no sense after seeing the movie. They make 0 sense. All right. I wanted to conclude this week's episode, with a shout out for Operation Underground Railroad, which is the organization that the real Tim Ballard started. He has an absolutely incredible story. He was a special agent for the Department of Homeland Security, and he was assigned Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force. And he eventually transitioned to child sex tourism. And he was trying to catch, pedophiles trafficking children and abusing children. But the bureaucracy only let him go after American children. And he talks about situations where he knew that children were being abused, and he could not get them because they were not American. The bureaucracy wouldn't let him do it. So he quit his job, and he did the work as a private citizen, working with local law enforcement and stuff like that, using what he learned from Homeland Security and all that. And he had to quit his job at Homeland Security to help, to do the most good. And God bless this man, seriously. The work that he does has to be incredibly difficult. And I did want to give out a shout out to him. And his organization has some tips on how to protect kids from human trafficking. So they say, I'm just going to read this paragraph. They have 4 powerful strategies. First, we must acknowledge the harsh reality of human trafficking. Only by understanding this complex issue can we combat it effectively. Second, as caregivers, it's our responsibility to protect our children. With comprehensive knowledge and awareness, we can do just that. Third, we need to educate ourselves on the tactics predators use to lure in innocent victims. By staying vigilant, we can help prevent our kids from falling into their traps. Finally, we must start open conversations with our children about the dangers they may face. How do I identify human trafficking? According to the DHS, Department of Homeland Security, there are key indicators that can help recognize human trafficking. Here are some red flags to look out for. Is the person disconnected from family, friends, and community organizations? Has a child stopped attending school? Has the person's behavior changed dramatically? Is a juvenile being forced into commercial sex acts? Is the person showing signs of physical or mental abuse? Are there bruises or various stages of healing on the person? Is the person timid and submissive? Has the person been denied food, water, sleep, or medical care? And it goes on and on. And then finally, I wanted to point out human trafficking. They say, FAQ, how big of a problem is human trafficking? Human trafficking, they say, isn't just a problem. It's a global epidemic. The latest International Labor Organization study estimates that a staggering 49.6 million people are currently living in modern slavery worldwide, with a whopping 27.6 million in labor and sex trafficking, 22 million in forced marriage. These numbers are on the rise, and it's not just happening over there. An estimated 5.1 million people are in modern slavery on any given day in the United States alone. Child sex trafficking has been reported in every single state. These statistics are harrowing, but we're not without hope. Government and non-government organizations like Operation Underground Railroad are fighting tirelessly to combat this evil. OUR offers international support in over 40 countries, as well as backing law enforcement efforts in the United States. So, again, I think I read those statistics at the beginning of this episode, but I just kind of wanted to drive that point home, that it's happening everywhere. I think at the end of the movie, they give you a bunch of stats. They said that United States is the biggest demand for a child for this kind of stuff. So I wanted to conclude this episode by telling you how you can help. You can help by spreading awareness and seeing this movie. If you don't think you can handle the movie because of the dark nature of the content, the theme, it's understandable. You can, however, pay it forward. Angel Studios, that's the studio that distributed the film. And by the way, Angel Studio, I learned this the other day. An angel, they don't mean like godly angels. They mean their studio is named after an angel donor. which in the business, I guess, if you do like crowdfunding stuff, an angel donor, a donor that would crowdfund something is called an angel. Actually, Broadway, I learned this, Broadway was originally backed by angel donors. So Angel Studio isn't necessarily named for, godly angels. It's named for, investors, because it's a crowd-funded studio. Angel Studios set up a pay-it-forward ticketing system for Sound of Freedom. And so if you cannot afford to buy a ticket to this film, you can see the movie for free. You can go, or you can pay for someone to see it for free. You can go to angel.com/payitforward/Sound of Freedom. Is that it? Thought it was something else, but you can also go to angelstudios.com or angel.com. I'm sure it's up there as well. I'll put that in the show notes as well. But yeah, if you want to help out, that's how you can do it. See the film and then tell people about it. Word of mouth marketing helps. And for whatever reason, the media, they don't want you to see this film. I don't understand it. It's just a movie. It's a dark movie, sure. It's not a perfect movie, but it's a good movie. It's an overwhelmingly good movie. And I think they're afraid, I think they're afraid of people going outside of the normal Hollywood monopoly, because this went outside of that, and it's doing well. And that's what I think. What do you think? Have you seen The Sound of Freedom? Let me know in the comments. But my name is Joe Ludwig. Thanks for listening to this review of The Sound of Freedom. I really enjoyed the film. Bravo to the team who put it together and who persevered to get it out. It was a really powerful film, and it was a good movie, well-made movie, which I haven't seen one of those in a while, for various reasons. So yeah, my name is Joe Ludwig. Thanks for listening. You can follow us on craftparentingpodcast.com. That's our website. We're on all the social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter. And I will see you next time.